Welcome back to the game plan. It's NFL Week 2. We got the bets with the bet master himself, John Statsational, Alesia from the Sharp app. John, second week of the fantasy football season. My bets did really well. I think it did pretty well overall last week. How'd it go for you?
Not a bad week. The props did really well. Kind of split on the bets, had 4 bets split, and just crushed it on the prop side. Where listen, the props are where it's going to be a little softer, and I think that's where we could probably make our money this year is going to be on the prop side. So that's why I like using the app. Do a quick early commercial already. I like using the Sharp app, man. But the Proptimizer, I get all my picks through the Proptimizer, and I'm looking for the edges on those prop bets for the NFL. Yeah, if you click over on the NFL, I specifically look at just a few stats that I think are key. I like the receptions because those are easier for me to calculate. I think yardage, you've got just a bigger, there's a lot more variance when it comes to yardage. I always say this, I'm like, you can make one, you can have one catch for 50 and it totally throws things off. But when you look, I mean, as a DFS player, as most of you watching this, presumably everyone watching this is a DFS player, you're going to have a much better idea about game script, and game script is going to dictate maybe the amount of looks a receiver is going to get, or the running back in the passing game, as opposed to yardage, which, you break a tackle or the running back catches 3 balls behind the line of scrimmage and doesn't get anything. Those things are a little tougher to gauge.
And over on Derek Carr, I believe, passing yards, and he was so good and efficient last week that threw for 3 touchdowns on like 200 yards. I was at 220. So sometimes it just goes too well.
Totally. Yeah, actually, the one non-receiver yardage or receptions prop that I had was the under on Rodgers touchdowns on Monday, which was pretty good. He got a little shaky there. He got his first one in the third quarter, but yeah, that was a tough performance for the Jets on Monday night.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I called it on the show. You bet the unders. I basically said full fade Rodgers all season long, by the way, as a quarterback. He's never going to be a fantasy football asset.
I brought this up the other day, and it wasn't to you, and you're a season-long fantasy player. I mean, you do all summer long. You got on DFS Army, you're talking about, draft picks and whatnot. Have you ever seen a team make the Super Bowl with an undrafted quarterback in fantasy? And I'm not talking, sometimes you get the now I'm forgetting his name, Kurt Warners of the world, where we just didn't know who he was and he excelled. But like, we know who Aaron Rodgers is. He's going undrafted pretty much he went undrafted in all leagues. And I don't think I've ever seen it where a team went to the Super Bowl with a quarterback who wasn't even fantasy worthy.
I mean, it's happened. I do want to go back to Trent Dilfer. It's happened. Eli Manning.
Who would happen with a veteran quarterback might have happened.
The Giants runs with Eli Manning.
Was Eli not? I got to go back and look.
Fantasy relevant. He was not a fantasy.
No, but was he never drafted? Was he not a drafted quarterback?
I mean, not fantasy relevant, like a backup. I don't know, but right.
I'm saying Aaron Rodgers. I was in deep leagues that Aaron Rodgers did not go in.
They were sharp. Aaron Rodgers ranked way too high. The DFS salary is the thing that got me. I'm like, yeah, this is a guy who you wouldn't touch in season long, and he's like 6K, 5,900. I'm like, what? No, you got to lower him down to the untouchable Russell Wilson zone of 5,200 to 4,900. That's what he'll be all year. And I'm a Jets fan, but Aaron Rodgers is not the kind of quarterback on a Jets team that's defensive. It's just not going to happen. So easy fades when they're in showdowns and all of that good stuff, and easy unders. So yeah, here's Proptimizer tool, Sharp app, check it out. But we are here to talk bets. Last week, my only bet that I think I gave out on the show was Houston. It was easy money for me, Houston money line. I also took Dallas, and I was going to take San Francisco, but everybody was on the Jets, so I just didn't do the bet. But I just didn't do it. But Dallas, I didn't understand that line either. And there's a bunch of lines today that are just like, what? Don't make any sense to me. And I think there are a lot of bettable spots. NFL week 2. So, John, let's jump right into it here. First game on the docket. Raiders on the road at Baltimore. Raiders not looking too good last week at all. Just the offense in disarray. Tough defense, Baltimore, but they're getting 9 points. That's a lot of points to give up if you're a Ravens believer here.
Yeah, they are giving up a lot. The Sharp report had sharp money come in on Baltimore. Now, I took this game early, like Sunday night, and I took I'm on the wrong side right now. I got it at 8.5. I took the Raiders. I really thought it looked like when I was looking at Pinnacle, you go on the Sharp app now, and the nice thing is we've got Pinnacle and Circa in there. Pinnacle being one of the sharper books, they had it at 8. Most of the market was at 8.5, and my numbers are screaming Raiders in this game. So I said, let me grab this at 8.5. I'm not really too upset. Games don't land on 9, so I'm not worried that I missed it. But I was more concerned. I didn't want to get down to 8. Like, I'd much rather have the 8.5 than 8 than I am concerned about being 8.5 to 9. So right now, I'm not at the best number. I think there's some 9.5s out there as well. I think Caesars may have this at 9.5, but yeah, there's still some 8.5s in the market also. So this one's kind of, you're going to get that kind of a spread. Talk about it all the time when you're in between the key numbers, like a 7 and a 10. You'll get a little bit of a spread in the market, and that's what we got going on here. But sharp money is on Baltimore right now, according to the Sharp report, and I'm going against the sharp money right now, which I don't necessarily like, but I do like the Raiders. I think it's too many points. Interesting for survivor pools, of course. This is the number 1 pick, Baltimore being the biggest favorite on the board, but we're going to have a lot of opportunities to take Baltimore during the year.
Yeah, I don't think this week that you need to go there with Baltimore. As far as I agree. The Raiders didn't look good week 1. I think you have to throw a little bit away from what you see in week 1. It's rusty. Teams, it's like coming off the bye. It's a very long bye week they're coming off. And so teams are going to come in a little rusty. We're going to really get the feel for some of these teams over the next few weeks. But yeah, not impressed by the Raiders offense at all. Baltimore in this game, a lot of people are going to be on. So I'm just going to mention, a lot of people are going to be on Lamar Jackson as a DFS play. He's the most expensive quarterback, and the team's got a big team total. And I get it, and I understand it, but I'm just going to warn people that the way the Ravens tend to play, and that doesn't mean they'll always do this, but they don't pile up on the points. As soon as they're ahead, they want to sit back, play defense, run the football, be conservative. They usually don't like to risk their quarterback. They'd rather run in for touchdowns. If you're messing with the Ravens as a heavy favorite, it really should be the running backs. Derrick Henry, okay. You're probably going to get a touchdown here. So that's much more the way to attack.
What do you think? I'm in a survivor fantasy pool.
Okay.
Pool.
All right.
So it's a full lineup that you put out, but you can only take that player once.
Okay.
So, I've been stacking it like you do in DFS, and then one of my running backs, I'm thinking Derrick Henry this week as a one-off in a big favorite spot early in the year. I kind of like that pick.
Yeah, I mean, lock him in for a touchdown here. I don't know that he's gonna have a ton of volume. I think they're also kind of managing the Derrick Henry volume a little bit. I saw a lot of Justice Hill last week, like way more than I was comfortable with. So they're managing his volume. I don't think he's a smash player, but I think he gets a touchdown in this game, and lock it in. Right, he's getting a tutty here.
He's getting it down on the goal line. So yeah, that's kind of what you're hoping for. And of course, a pool like that, I'm using a lot of players, so you've got to kind of judiciously pick when you want to use them. I think this is kind of a good spot. I was thinking Hill too, but I'm like, I'm going to go with Henry.
You might never need Hill. Like, does it go that deep that eventually you need to use a player at the level of like a Justice Hill?
I wouldn't. Well, think about it. You got 2 running backs every week and a flex position. So you're going to need at least, if you just use running backs, you're going to need at least 36.
I wouldn't do that. I think that's too much. That's too much.
But I think Henry was.
You got to survive, in order to keep using these guys. You're going to cost yourself your survival there with the Justice Hill. We can't take that chance.
Exactly.
All right. Next up, Dallas home taking on the Saints. Saints put a beating on the Panthers last week. Like I don't even want to say it was horrific. It was hard to watch. Panthers are terrible, but Saints are much better at home than on the road. Dallas put the beating on the Browns last week as well. 6.5 points. I don't mind laying it, John. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I think you're getting it done here. I know you like those dogs, but I don't know. I like Cowboys to get it done here.
Yeah, I mean, I typically like the dogs. I don't love the game. It's tricky. It's a tricky spot. We're seeing, if you want to look at the handles, I mean, it's basically flipped between the public bets on the Saints and the money on Dallas. Like 90% of the money's coming in on Dallas. with 20% of the bets. So it's right now it kind of looks that way. Yeah, the handles
I'm on the sharp side.
I mean, that's the way it looks from the handles. We're not getting anything on the sharp report really to confirm that. So, I kind of take it with a grain of salt. The book actually, when I look at the book needs New Orleans. So if you typically you want to be on the book side, but being that the book that we look at is a sharp book, we fade those plays. So
yeah, the book has been losing a ton of money. We want to be on the opposite side.
We fade those plays. So you actually want to be on the Dallas side of this game. The book needs it at plus 6.5, which is where we're at right now. So you could kind of get on that fade side, which is what we do. It's very profitable. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but you'll know more about it if you're a subscriber over at the Sharp app and understand what that Sharp report looks like. So yeah, that Dallas side would be seems like the sharper side of this game. And yeah, if you like it, I think you got to jump on it now. You don't want to get this one up to 7. I don't know if it's going to necessarily get there, but Saints, I don't think people are giving the Saints really much credit as much as they're just down on Carolina. I'm sorry to talk about Survivor all the time, but I just did the video over for the Sharp app on this, and I get a lot of comments. A lot of people are just going to be fading Carolina all year. Not necessarily a strategy I adhere to. I always feel like how many teams have ever gone 0 for I think it was only that Lions team, right? So I don't necessarily go by that. I look week to week, but just keep that in mind. People are really more down on Carolina than I think they're high on the Saints. Now, coming into the year, I was high on both of these teams. I've got Saints over in wins. I've got Dallas over. I've got both of these teams. I actually have a future on the Saints to win the Super Bowl, as I do with Dallas. I don't expect the Saints to win the Super Bowl, but at 100-1, there was value there, so I took a piece. So this game's a tough one for me. I would lean towards the Dallas side of this game. I think both defenses are really strong. That 46.5 actually looks interesting. Looks a little high to me. I think the inflated line there is more towards the fact that the Dallas offense looks so good against a really tough Cleveland defense, or so we think that Cleveland defense is going to be strong. But I think this is going to be a tough defensive game. I think this game's a little lower scoring than maybe that 46.5 says.
I can see it much more on the Dallas side, just being nasty defensively in this one. As far as you look at this game and you just, all right, CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks had a big week last week, so sure, why not? I've been thinking about if Dak Prescott is a viable sort of DFS stack play for NFL Week 2, and I'm going to say yes. I think that you never know when the Cowboys are just going to pour it on. They don't have a dominant running game, so I could absolutely see a situation where just all of a sudden it's like one of those crazy Dak games that came out of nowhere. He'll need to support 2 wide receivers for that to happen, which is why you can't really just pair him up with Lamb. But I think Lamb, regardless of anything else, has a huge day here. And they just lean on him like they did last week. He looks so good out there. He always does. So we'll see a little bit more of that. But yeah, I'm on the Dallas side of this game against the spread as well. I think they're going to dominate these guys. I think the Saints last week was a lot to do with the Panthers being terrible. They're terrible. Like I watched it again. Bryce Young is not that guy. Sorry, Panthers fans. Mea culpa if I'm wrong, but as of right now, John, I think Bryce Young is like in danger of not being.
I thought we'd see, it's game 1. I'm not optimistic at this point, but I really thought we might see a bump up. They've got the new coach in there. He's did wonders with Mayfield. He's had success. It's one game, but again, yeah, that was disappointing. I thought they'd put a better showing on. I actually thought they would keep that game close. I had the Panthers on a bet.
Nope. Yeah, it was gross.
It did not work.
The fade all season thing. I mean, he could turn around. Listen, we were wrong all the time, but as of right now, my thought is the fade all season thing is actually the correct.
Yeah. I think he's got to show it to you before you can have any confidence in him.
Yeah, and speaking of the Panthers, the Chargers on the road at the Panthers, 6.5-point road favorites. One of the worst totals on the slate, although not the worst, but it's up there with the 38. So effectively, this game is DFS poison in a lot of ways. The whole Panthers offense is untouchable. If we were in India, they would be known as untouchables. There's a whole group of people in India that are untouchables, apparently. I learned about this the other day. That's the Panthers offense. They're the untouchables. Chargers are kind of a boring team right now, though, John. Really leaning heavy on the run. J.K. Dobbins last week, same amount of touches and carries as Gus, but did a whole lot more with them. I think Ladd McConkey is emerging, quick little emergence as that guy. I think Ladd McConkey has superstar potential. Trade for him in your dynasty league if you can. But do the Chargers have enough to cover the 6.5?
I think that's going to be tough. Yeah, I think the 6.5 is tough cover on the road heading to the West. I don't put too much into that, kind of West Coast teams, East Coast early game. I actually put more weight into games the other way, going to the West Coast at night. That seems to be a tougher spot. You had the Jets on Monday night as an example of that. But I think again with this game, I think the total is actually more interesting. The sharp money came in on the under, it knocked it down a point or so. The 38.5 is actually one of the lowest totals. I think DraftKings has this at the lowest total there is in the market. You could get 39s out there, and I think 39 is fine there. Even 38.5, I'm good with the under on this game. As you said, the Chargers, their game plan with Harbaugh, they're going to pound the ball. This is the reason that Herbert was not a guy you wanted to draft in season-long leagues. This is a team that you probably didn't want to get any pieces of, as far as you might, McConkey might be that guy, but they are not going to just sling it all over the field. DFS purposes, like you said, this game is just basically poison unless you're looking at the defenses. I like the under in this game with a team with a quarterback who is struggling, who are going to try run the ball against this Charger team who undoubtedly wants to pound the ball. You saw the with Dobbins, and they've got two running backs that they could use. I think this game stays under. Because of that, my lean would be more towards Carolina. I just have a tough time here getting on the Carolina bandwagon. I mean, there's a chance that Carolina just, again, scores in the single digits, and we see a 20-7 type of game, 20-6. I don't even know if
I think they might be so terrible that they just cannot get in the end zone.
Yeah.
This is not something to mess with. For me, it's favorite or pass. I'm not messing with. I think I'll go the whole season without messing with the Panthers. I'm with the survivor people. Like, let's just fade those guys.
Before you go too far down, you passed up the Viking game.
Oh, whoa! Yeah. All right. Oops. All right. Next up, we got the 49ers, fresh off the beating they put on the Jets, heading out to Minnesota, taking on the Vikings. 49ers likely to have Jordan Mason starting again, NFL Week 2. Chalk, core, lock button play of the week in DFS. If Jordan Mason starts, he is in your lineup. How much is too much Jordan Mason on FanDuel, John, where he's like 5,200?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting more aggressive on these. I think you can almost lock button it, I think, this week.
I'm going to I make 150 lineups on FanDuel at that price. DraftKings, I can open it up for.
DraftKings is a little different, yeah.
Yeah, DraftKings also preemptively just raised the price on backup running backs this season just to mess with my favorite free money way of playing DraftKings, but FanDuel did not. So
I like that though. Yeah, no, FanDuel's typically a little softer.
So I'll be playing a lot more on FanDuel, especially this week where I could just lock button that spot. And you're like, hey, Kev, that's not going to give you much edge. He's going to be 40% owned. And I feel like I'm getting edge on the 60% that don't do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times when you get to that 50-60% in DFS, even when the player doesn't have the nuts type of point production, they do wind up in the winner because there's so many people have them. So real tough to fade certain guys. I think it's going to be a tough fade this week. Now, with that said, when we look at the betting markets, the sharp came in on Minnesota and knocked this one down. So this opened up at 7. It's gotten bet down. You can get 6.5, I believe. Yeah, 6.5 in some spots, as we're seeing here on DraftKings. They've got it at 6. You got to be careful when I tell you sharp money came in at 7, the sharps are looking for a specific price, right? 7 being a key number. Excuse me?
+7 or -7?
The Vikings came in. The Vikings were bet at +7, right? So that's a key number. The sharp money is playing key numbers. They're paying, and not necessarily key numbers as we're talking about 3s and 7s and 10s in the NFL, but they've got a certain number, right? So they're going to find the resistance. The way the sharp books work, the way the books work in general, right? So there's sharp books, and then there's the average U.S. Sportsbook, the DraftKings, the FanDuels of the world. And what's the nice thing? One of the nice things of having now Circa and Pinnacle in the Sharp app is we could get a look, especially early, as to where the money is at the sharper books, because these other books tend to lag behind, and they kind of and when you have a sharp book, the reason they're a sharp book is they accept action from sharp bettors. Early in the week, they accept smaller bets, and then they increase that limit as the week goes on because they're trying to get a feel for where the market is. So what I'm saying is at 7, sharps came in, but if the sharps don't come in at 6, maybe 6 isn't necessarily the price that they're looking for. But so just hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. I go into more of that over at the Sharp. I actually just did a whole write-up in our Discord at the Sharp app. I've got a whole education channel, and I just did a whole write-up on how sharps move the line. It's interesting if you're betting on these games to go take a look at that. But yeah, when we look at the movement, like I said, from 7 down to 6, you look at the bet percent now. We're getting right now the handles is giving us a different story. The money is coming in on the San Francisco side. The bets are coming in on the Minnesota side of this game. But I'd be leery of that just because I think if this thing lingers around 6 and we see all that money coming in on the 49ers, there's a reason they don't want to push this back up to 7. So watch these games that are close to that key number. If they don't want to push this back to 7, it's because they don't want to get hit with sharp money at a bigger where they could take more money at the 7, right? So they took probably small amounts of money early in the week at 7. They don't want to open themselves up to more money at the +7 at a higher limit if they don't get to 7. If they get to 7, that means they've taken so much money on the 49ers that they don't mind taking some Viking money at 7. So just keep that in mind. So that's what we're looking at as far as the line on this game. I think 46 is interesting for this one. I actually watched the game film. I watched the all 22 on the Viking game because I was interested just in seeing the Daniel Jones stuff, because it was another guy that I know you said get away from Jones. I thought he was going to bounce back as well. Interesting week this week, and we'll get to that game. But
I have some thoughts there. But yeah, I thought Jones was less bad than his box score showed.
If you watch the all 22, the Vikings, first of all, they were behind the chains quite a bit. They were in long, second and long, third and long all day because they can't run the ball. And the Vikings basically played. They rushed 4. They double covered the wide receivers on the outside. They played zone in the middle of the field, and the Giants ran. I mean, the play calling for the Giants was let's run 3 guys 15 plus yards deep into the coverage. And then when the pressure got to Daniel Jones, he tried to dump it off to somebody short. And half the times those passes were it was between terrible game planning. Jones didn't look great. I think that'll be a different story. But the Vikings, listen, they've got their work cut out for them. But here's the thing: when you get a team like the 49ers playing a defense that we thought was going to be one of the best, I still think the Jet defense will be fine. And they manhandle them the way that the 49ers did, and they dominate a game like that, national game. You're always going to have a little bit of a bias here from the public on that team. So I think that's where the Sharps came in. They said, this game got pushed up after the Monday night game to 7. The Sharps came in, boom, they hammered it down. So I think you're going to see, even though we're seeing, at least according to the handles, that more money, more of the tickets is coming on Minnesota. I think more tickets will be in on San Francisco. I think that changes by the end of the week. I think the public is going to really like San Francisco on this game. So I'm always a little hesitant on that Monday night team that just looks so dominant. You always kind of want to go against that team the next week.
Yeah, just ebbs and flows all the time. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust your eyes. Trust the ebbs and the flows of the NFL season. And if one team looked like shit last week and one looked too good, the lines are probably off. DFS plays from this one. Like I said, outside of Jordan Mason's huge, massive play. Deebo Samuel also tends to benefit when Christian McCaffrey's out. They run him as a running back a little bit more frequently than they do when he's not out. On the Vikings side, the only player of note is Justin Jefferson, but he's a very noteworthy player. So we'll keep an eye on those guys for this game, but I'm not going to pick a side. Personally, this is not one that I would bet because my lean is San Francisco, and I feel donkeyish about it, so I'm just going to stay away.
Let me throw one other thing out there. So CMC was a late scratch in that game, and we know the controversy that's going on with Jordan Mason saying it was a Friday game. But basically, the market really, no one had any idea he was not playing. Everyone assumed he was. That line moved a half a point on the best running back, the number one fantasy pick in everyone's league, the best back in the league. The game moved to half a point. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the 49ers are just so good at their run scheme, and you could almost plug any running back in there is going to do well. And like you just said, Debo becomes a lot bigger part of their running game. But I just want you to know, as a sports bettor, a lot of people, I had given out the 49ers an hour before that news came out, so I lost like a half a point of value. Still wound up being a winning bet. A lot of people in the Discord are at, do I still bet it? I haven't bet it yet. Do I still bet this at 3.5? And I said, absolutely. I said, the fact that it's only moved a half a point should actually make you feel more confident. So, a lot of people in survivor pools, things like that, when there's an injury, I get, especially survivor, so-and-so's not playing. I'm like, but the line is 7 or the line is 8. Like, the line is telling you that this team is still good. It doesn't mean they're going to win. Jamar Chase, Chase played, but it was limited, and there was injuries at Higgins and whatnot in that game, and people asked. But I said, okay, just look at the line, base everything. The line encapsulates and incorporates everything, the weather, all that stuff. It's baked into the line. So just to let you know, the best running back in the league, these guys have very little effect on the line, even though the public looks and they're like, oh my God, no McCaffrey, what are they going to do? When you lose your quarterback, different story. You can see big line moves, but it's tough for these skill position players to really move the line much more than a half to a point.
Yeah. We all observed it, the half a point move. And I think a lot of what you just said is it's a DFS philosophy of mine for many years. You've heard me say it a million times. Teams that produce to the running back position, that have a good scheme and continue to produce the running back position, regardless of who the name is of the person that they have doing the running of the football. So teams that are just bad at running it, they keep being bad. Backup comes in, same shit. But teams like the 49ers who smash points to the running back position, we saw with Elijah Mitchell 2 years ago. Like, whenever they plug somebody in, they do great, which is another reason why it was a very easy lock button for Jordan Mason on Monday. And again, this week, because you're basically getting Christian McCaffrey light for $5K, even on DraftKings. Seahawks at the Patriots. The Patriots looking pretty good. The brisket, they risked it for the brisket in week 1. Not too shabby at all. 3.5 point home underdogs. I think I know where you're going on this one, and I probably agree. 37.5 point total in this game. I don't know, John. I'm not going to say. I don't want to spoiler alert it. So how you seeing this one going down?
I mean, I don't love the game. I'm leaning on the New England side. The sharp money took New England at 4 early, and then bet this one down to 3.5. Some books are even at 3, but a juiced 3 on the Seattle side. So, yeah, the right as of right now, the sharp report's just telling us that New England is the bet. But Seattle looked fine. I think they were playing against a quarterback who I'm not very high on. I don't think you are either, if I recall. In Denver here with Knicks, they look terrible.
I know. I mean, you know what? Chalk it up. I don't know anything about Seattle from that game.
Exactly right. I mean, I wasn't where I had Seattle in the circa survivor pool. Some people, I just had a discussion with someone. They're like, because I said I really wasn't worried in the game. They're like, well, did you watch the game? I said I watched it, but I mean, they had 2 safeties in the first half. One on a terrible throw by Knicks, and they just happened to catch it inside the 1 yard line. And then they had a really good punt inside the 1. It's not going to happen every time. Other than that, Denver just was not able to move the ball. Like you said, I don't know how much we can garner from Seattle. I think the same's kind of true with New England. Like, I'm very bearish. I'm under on Cincinnati. I was under on Cincinnati's win total last year. I'm under on Cincinnati's win total this year. I didn't have a bet on the Patriots per se, but I think you have to be impressed. The Patriots didn't do a ton offensively, but is it a matter of Burrow's just not healthy, the wrist, whatever it was? They're obviously banged up. Chase just came back, not being utilized a lot. No T. Higgins. I don't know, but they didn't look very good at all. So I think these 2 teams that are coming in here, I don't have a really good read on. And like I said, the sharp money came in early on New England at the 3.5 at 4 actually. And we'll see if this thing gets down to 3 with less juice. Maybe there'll be some sharps come in the other side. But as of right now, the sharp money's on New England. And if you like the 4, you're going to like the 3.5 as well. Follow
the sharps, Statsational. That's the way to get it done here. I just think New England's not less bad than people said. I said this before the season. Jacoby Brissett is the starter. They're not a complete trash can of a team. They're fine. They have an acceptable group of players on offense and an acceptable quarterback. And when they play, sub top 10 kind of teams like Seattle, I think they're going to be competitive. I don't know that they're going to win this game, but 4 points. Yeah, I get it. Close game finish. They're at home. I could see it. I'd be on the New England side all day. There's no way I would lay 3.5 on Seattle on the road. That is just not how you're going to make money betting on football long term. There's nothing of interest here in DFS on this 37-pointer. Don't touch it. Stay away. There's a couple players that you could, but why? Right? There's no reason. So let's move on to this next game, which I absolutely love. I have a bet on it. Colts at the Packers. Packers +3 at home. Rolling out Malik Willis at the quarterback position. They made an emergency phone call, John, to Ryan Tannehill. They're like, we need you, bro. They called him up. So we need you. Get out here. We got Malik Willis. We've got saw him in practice. This guy's terrible. And Tannehill's like, no, I'm out. He didn't want to do it. Said, I'm looking for a starting role. I'm waiting for a season ender. He's waiting for the Browns to get rid of Deshaun Watson and finally give up on the experiment or something. So they're stuck with Malik. And the line is 3. I don't get it. This is where I question this thing that you said about lines accounting for things. Are they accounting for the fact that Malik Willis absolutely stinks or seems to stink?
Well, what would this line be, you think, with Love? That's the question.
Packers +7, -7 or -6.
That's 9 points. That's very, very high. But, you remember when Rodgers went out a few years ago with the Packers?
They had Jordan Love.
They had Love, but he wasn't very good. And they were getting killed every game that Love came in there. And I think they started it out. They were moving that line about 6 points. And eventually it wound up being 10. It's very rare you see a quarterback go out and it's a 10-point move.
Well, if there's no backup, this is what I'm saying.
That's it. It obviously it depends on your backup, but this is a big move. So that's what I'm saying. How much do you want to move this line? Do you want to move it more than 10? So they're moving it to, if you think they were a 6-point favorite,
let's say 6. Yeah, minus.
I don't think they were. I actually think they're moving a little less. I think it'd be maybe 4 or something like that. 7 is still a lot, but if you think it's 9, is he a 2 touchdown? Is it a 2 touchdown? Now, I've seen some stats on Malik Willis that are just god awful. I heard some. I wish I could recite them. I heard them yesterday on the radio, but it was remarkable just how bad his numbers have looked in the brief amount of games.
To be clear, he's barely played.
He's barely played. He's going to run. That's what they're going to do. It's a different style of game. They're going to try to run with him a bit. They're going to try to keep this game close. We haven't seen any sharps come in on the game, so that'll give you a little bit there. Now, I liked Green Bay. Certainly I would have liked them in this game. I'm kind of hesitant. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. If I know the whole world likes the Colts. Again, I go back to the Survivor because I'm in the Survivor streets, and I hear from people, and I cannot tell you how many people are asking me if they should take the Colts this week. Now, I think it's asinine, because you're going to have other opportunities to take the Colts, and you've got a ton of games that look better, certainly on the point spread. But that just gives you the mindset of the sports bettor out there right now. I don't think I can't imagine a recreational bettor out there right now who is going to take the Packers at all. I think every rec bettor is going to be on the Colts. They're going to see 3 points and just say, well, how could they possibly just be a 3-point favorite? Now, this Packer defense is going to be fine here, right? So they didn't get hurt on defense. I think you're going to see another low-scoring game. We've seen a lot of low-scoring games. I think this will be another one. I love what I see from Richardson, though, but he's still not quite there in the accuracy department. They had their opportunities last week. Mitchell could have scored. I think 3 times he missed them last week for touchdowns, and it wasn't like he had to squeeze it in there. I love Richardson. I think for fantasy, you have to love Richardson. But he's got to get a little bit better accuracy. He's a big kid who, he just runs. I'm watching him. I'm praying to God he could play 5 years in the league the way he runs. But he's an impressive looking kid. I think he's going to get better and more accurate in the passing game. But I wouldn't get so I wouldn't be so much in a hurry to throw every dollar I have on the Colts.
Here's the scenario where the Packers win or even cover the spread. It's basically the Colts just making mistakes, turning it over, and allowing defensive, plays from the Packers to put them in situations to score quickly. So it would basically have to be one of those games, because I don't believe the Packers can sustain offensive drives with Malik Willis, and they don't have the running back talent to really just do it either without like a threat of the pass. So I don't think they'll be able to sustain touchdown drives. I think it's going to have to be one of those fluky games that like do happen all the time, where all of a sudden, Richardson's looking good, but turns it over at the one, turns it, the games where you're going to lose, where the team just turns it over in the red zone like 3 or 4 times over the course of the game. You're like, I lost.
Well, it's the game you dominate the game, and you're down 3 at the half, and you go, this is like, you've dominated every statistical category but the points.
Yeah, it's one of those games. That's how that happens. And by the way, the betting gods will punish the casuals. So that's what they do. But I mean, on paper, I love Colts defense here. I love Colts to cover, but I'm not like super crazy about the DFS plays on the Colts team. So it's more because I don't think the Packers are going to keep up in terms of offense. So I'm not super excited about the Colts like offensive weapons or Richardson necessarily this week. I don't hate him, but it's not like my top play. But I think Colts defense is one of the best plays on the slate. And I took the bet on the Colts. I took the spot. I joined the public.
The public doesn't always lose, but there's definitely going to be a ton of public money on the Colts.
Absolutely. Let's keep going, John. Bucks at the Lions. One of the more exciting games, I think, of the early games anyway. 51-point total. Lions are just so good. They have so many weapons. Good defense too. They're just a solid team. Real Super Bowl contender type team this year. Bucks looked amazing last week, taking on the worst defense. Now, did you see the Burns call? Burns on the Millie Maker Shark Lab podcast that I did with him and on Tournament Tactics only kind of threw out 3 or 4 names for Millie Maker quarterbacks, but his top one was Baker Mayfield. Said Baker Mayfield stacks. Baker Mayfield with 2. Baker Mayfield with Evans and Godwin. And he was talking it up. Thing was like 1% owned and was absolutely the nuts stack this past weekend. It was the top stack, even though other quarterbacks actually, scored the same. But it was the Mayfield double stack that was the top stackable spot of the week 1 slate. So congrats to Burns for pulling that out. We had some members come in like 10th. We had a guy come in 12th in the Millie Maker on DraftKings with that stack. Sliders.
Saw him. Yeah, he does well.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So, and it was just such a good call. But that was matchup based. This is a different situation. The Lions really good at home. So many weapons there. Do you think the Bucks can keep it within 7?
I think it's possible. I don't mind the 7. Don't necessarily love the spot. The over is kind of where I think this game goes over more so than the 7. This got bet up. It's 51 now at over at DraftKings. This opened up 48.5 was the first number, and it's been going up ever since. So if you want to kind of follow this team, I think this goes higher. I mean, Detroit last week, I think it was only 2 games where we saw 300 yards passing, and one of them was Stafford last week against Detroit. I think the other one was the Tua game with Miami. So you talked about Mayfield last year with the last week with that double stack. Baker's fine. He's got a good rapport with both of those wide receivers. I think they're going to put points up in this game. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Detroit either. So I feel more comfortable kind of taking this game to the over. I told you about my survivor pool last week. I took Stafford in that pool and stacked him. Unfortunately, I stacked him with Puka and I didn't stack him with Kupp. But I had Williams on the comeback. That was my kind. He went off last week for Detroit as the other side. I'm coming back to it, and I'm taking. This week, I'm going to take the Mayfield stacks in this game. Now, they're a big underdog. It's a different strategy to DFS because I can only take this player once, but I'm going to take them and then take the St. Brown probably on the other side. So, but I just think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I like it to the over more so. Now, when you get over, someone asked this question in the Discord last week, and they actually had it backwards. So I forget who it was. I think Capper Steve had given out a pick, and they were asking, do you like the favorite more on this low? It was a low total game with a kind of a high point spread, and they said, well, wouldn't the favorite team be better if the game goes under? And it's actually the opposite.
Yeah,
So
favorite
as
team
the game,
over.
yeah, when the game gets higher scoring, there's a bigger the variance in what the score could be is greater, right? So we could have a bigger fluctuation in the score. As the score is depressed, of course, it's going to be tighter. Makes that 7 points a lot tougher to cover in a lower scoring game. We're not expecting low scoring here. We're expecting higher scoring. So I could see Detroit still covering this game if this game gets up into the 60s or something like that. So I'm actually, I don't mind taking the 7 points, but again, I'm going to take the over in this game. I kind of like that side more than I like either one of these teams. I could see Tampa Bay kind of sticking with them punch for punch and Detroit pulling it out at the end.
I can see it. I didn't talk too much about the Lions side of this one, but Jameson Williams looked great last week. Really looked like a whole different player, just physically looked different too. He looked like larger to me, or maybe I was imagining it, but he looked more muscled than I recall. Lions are just loaded with weapons everywhere. I do think their running back weapons both have a shot of putting up good numbers here. Pretty much all their players. You mentioned Amon-Ra. There's a little too many players almost on the Lions for any one of them to be relied on. Like, Laporta, not anything special. Amon-Ra, nothing special last week. It all went to some other guys. So I think that's going to be the case all season long. We're going to be dancing around all these great weapons that can't all get it done every single week. And maybe the play is just kind of avoid it. Or kind of avoid it a lot of the time. That'll be something that I'm doing. But I do like the Lions overall. But I think the bet is the Buck side as well. It's just going to be tough for me to pull that trigger. It's probably not a bet I'm going to make. I like your call on the over, though. All right, next up, we got the Jets at the Titans. Jets on the road again. 3.5-point road favorites. Titans team did not look very good last week. Completely dominated by a Bears defense that I think is supposed to be better than it was, but it's not necessarily known as this elite defense. But I think a lot of it was to do with the fact that, again, another quarterback here that I'm not convinced is NFL ready at all for the Titans. I maybe, hey, who knows? But I think this game's going real different from the Jets. Effectively faced the best offense in the National Football League, maybe, or in competition with the Chiefs for the best last week in the 49ers. Now they're facing one of the competitors for the worst. Like, you put the Titans in there with Carolina and maybe, this week's version of Green Bay. Like, this is one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and a great defense should dominate them. So even though it's on the road, Jets getting 3.5 have not shown anything yet, but I do think they will get it done. And I actually think I would like to squeeze that number down to 3. But I would be on the Jets -3, or maybe the money line's a little too steep for me. DFS plays, I think you get right back onto Breece Hall as the top running back play of week 2. And, that's about it for me.
I like this game. I like Tennessee plus the points. I think it's going to take time for this Jet offense to really gel. So I think and for that reason, I like Tennessee and the under as a little parlay on this game. I like the under quite a bit. Sharps came in on the under. I don't think we've seen anything yet as far as the side for this game, but the under to me looks good. I thought, listen, the Tennessee defense, you're playing against a rookie quarterback last week. The Bears offense was awful. They lost that game because of I think, did they score twice on defense? Chicago?
The Bears did. Yeah.
That's where the game was. So I think this Tennessee team is better than people think coming into this year. And I've been looking to short the Jets to start the season. I think it's really difficult when you see a veteran quarterback switch teams, a lot of times that takes a little time to gel. I always go back to Tom Brady because you're talking about the greatest quarterback of all time. That offense took about 10 weeks before they really got their footing, and then they were unstoppable all the way through to the Super Bowl. But even, listen, Russell Wilson never really got it going with Denver. It's taken Derek Carr a while. These veteran quarterbacks we saw last week with Atlanta, right? With Cousins. I think it's tough for a new quarterback or a veteran quarterback on the new team. And now you're talking about a guy coming off an Achilles injury who is 40 years old. Not only is it going to be difficult for him to gel, we're talking about a quarterback who is coming off. Listen, he played for the Packers, couldn't get the job done. He could not get this team at home, right? They had that Sunday night game at home to get him into a playoff. Basically, it was a playoff game. Couldn't win a playoff game at home. The following year, Love is like, if it's not for Stroud, Love's the darling of the league, gets the team into the postseason. So I know you're a Jet fan. I'm kind of tempering the expectations with the Jets. I took their win total under, and I'm going to continue to fade the Jets. And they're against a team here in Tennessee that I was, I wasn't bullish enough to really put a lot of money on them in future bets, but I do think they're going to be improved off of what they were last year. So for that reason, I think the 3.5, I like getting the hook here. I'm going to take Tennessee plus the 3.5 until the Jets show me that they are the team that people think they are.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on the Jets' offensive side and the passing game in particular. I have no minimal confidence in it. It's really Jets defense and this terrible Will Levis situation that I'm really relying on for this one at the moment. So the Jets couldn't have looked worse defensively, got run all over. I think that all gets fixed here, and we see what the Jets defense can do against effectively a bad offense. So we'll find out. Not much to like, though, beyond that. And I definitely am not touching anything on the Titans in fantasy. So stay away from those guys. Giants at the Commanders. Commanders 1.5 point home favorites. Over 44.5 is the total. We had interesting sort of takeaways from both of these teams in week one. John, first of all, did you see the Giants costumes in week one? I'm not even going to call it a uniform. Well, what the hell were they wearing?
What was worse was they were playing against the Vikings in the purple, and the contrast was just absolutely. I was like, I'm getting a headache watching.
Yeah, it was physically
between both of those teams, and I like the Viking uniforms, but they just did not mesh well.
It was
with those Giant uniforms.
Looking at with the Giants and those little hockey uniforms they're wearing, or whatever the hell that was, it was like physically bothering my eyes. I hope I didn't. I missed. I don't know. I've not been paying attention. I hope they aren't wearing that all year. If they are, that is bananas.
That was for the 100-year anniversary or something like that. Yeah.
All right. I figured it had to be because I'm like, what are they wearing? All right. So, but beyond that, listen, Daniel Jones looked like shit. We all saw it. He looked terrible. Flip side, Commanders quarterback, Jaden Daniels, he looked pretty good. Didn't throw a ton, didn't really produce to the wide receivers at all, but he was quick to take off. And when he did take off, he didn't look like, really like first season Justin Fields, where he took off into the line and got tackled in 2 seconds. He saw openings and he headed for them. I liked his running. I like his size. I liked his poise on the field. So, much respect to Jaden Daniels. I think the Commanders got themselves a good one. We'll find out. I think it's noteworthy, John, that Daniel Jones has weirdly owned the Commanders throughout his career. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I have heard this.
Yeah, he's got a great record against the Commanders. Throw for like 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions over his career. Like, the numbers are really, really good against the Commanders. And it's got my DFS spidey senses tingling a little bit.
This happens at DFS all the time. We kill a guy, and then you're like, oh, but now the matchup this week is oftentimes it's against Washington.
Yeah, it's usually Washington. I mean,
it's like, but this week.
Well, if you listen, like I said, if we went back to the Burns call on Baker, it was nothing to do with how great Baker was. He was like, Washington allows the 30, was the most generous defense to opposing quarterbacks last season. They're terrible. Basically just spit out a pile of statistics about why the Washington defense has been terrible and why quarterbacks excel against them. And now you have a close game. I mean, yes, bad Jones could show up and probably will and mess it all up, but if you get that version that pops up every once in a while of Daniel Jones, he's running and he's able to break free. And, if you get that guy, he scores 30 plus.
Yeah, I mean they run set plays for him. I don't know if I was talking about this before we got on the show or not. I was watching the All 22 for Daniel Jones. I mean, it was just a combination of bad coaching. They were just running into the coverage, and Jones just making a couple of more than a couple, but some bad decisions as well. I think what's interesting in this game now, I like the Giants plus the 1.5. I think you've got. I don't know if anyone caught more crap on social media this week. I don't think it was a quarterback who caught more crap than Daniel Jones did. I mean,
the fans were burning his jerseys outside of the stadium.
So, if it's a buy low situation for me. I think they bounce back against a team. He's got, like you said, he's got confidence against this team. It's not a good defense. What strikes me as interesting though is the total. You would think now you look at Darnold looked like the second coming of Fran Tarkington in Minnesota last week and put up a ton of yardage and points. Great DFS play was Sam Darnold last week. Washington, you just talked about what they did with Baker Mayfield. So you've got two defenses who are not particularly impressive coming into this matchup, and it's only a 44.5 point spread. Now that has a lot to do with the fact that the offense here for the Giants looks so abysmal, but I think they bounce back. I think the over is definitely in play, and I do like the Giants a bit.
Yeah, they'll have to bounce back. Offensive pieces in this game are all kind of playable. Malik Neighbors on the Giants side, even Devin Singletary, D Sizzles is playable. And on the Commanders side, maybe we can go and maybe scary Terry McLaurin will finally get a couple targets. The coach is talking about how they want Jaden to kind of look for the throw a little bit more this week, and also. I was pretty impressed with Brian Robinson Jr. getting targeted and sort of being more like a full service running back for the Commanders last week. So I think all those players are on the periphery of guys that I'd be interested in as well. Closing out the early slate, John, we got the Cleveland Browns on the road, taking on the Jaguars. Jaguars coming off a tough game, lost to Miami. Browns coming off it's beyond a tough game. I'm going to call it a game that has you questioning everything. Is Deshaun Watson ruined as a player? He might be. Are they terrible? They might be. So Jaguars, I'm not super concerned about. They had tough opening week. They were competitive, and I like what I saw specifically from the rookie Brian Thomas Jr. I just like the way he looks out there. He was the snap count. He was on the field the whole game, didn't come off. So I'm cautiously optimistic. There was some weird stuff with Travis Etienne that I still need to read up on. I know there was something going on there that I'm just not really sure what happened. I don't know if you're familiar with why Etienne was like not getting as many touches as he usually does. I'm not sure what went on there, but Jaguars are 3-point favorites at home. Very low total here, 41.5. Seems like too low to me, John, but what do you think of this game in general?
Yeah, low total. The line, I think I don't have a strong opinion on this one, but this is another one. We just talked about Daniel Jones being the guy who may have caught the most crap. I may be mistaken because it may be Deshaun Watson.
And let's not talk about Kirk Cousins either, because that didn't look very good.
No, Cousins didn't, but they're giving, they're going to give Cousins a little bit of a break here. We've seen, like Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. They've had a little bit of a shorter leash.
Yeah.
We're already talking about who's going to come in and replace Deshaun Watson. Does Deshaun Watson need maybe some massage therapy? Whatever the case may be here. But Watson has not looked good. I'll be honest. When Watson was in Houston, I thought a lot of what he did well, not necessarily that he even did well. A lot of it was attributable to Hopkins, because I think Hopkins was. You saw Deshaun Watson just basically get out there and fire the ball deep down to a guy who was just at that time was insane. I mean, the guy made every possible catch, double coverage. He was the best wide receiver in the league, and I think that was a big benefit to Watson. We haven't really seen him have the kind of production without Hopkins as he did with. So I think maybe that had a lot to do with it, and so I'm not very optimistic here on the future. Now, the thing that you do like about the Browns and that did not show up last week, and I think will this week, is the defense. I think we'll see a much better defensive performance. Dallas, we've seen Dallas that Dallas offense be really unstoppable at times in the past. I think it did surprise everybody to go into Cleveland and look as good as they did. But I think the Cleveland Browns, what I expect to bounce back is that defense here. And the total is kind of telling you that 41.5 on this total. I think the Browns will keep this game closer than that 3 points and may even possibly win the game. So I do like the Brown. The one thing I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it on the show last week, but Deshaun Watson historically hasn't actually not been a very good quarterback against the spread as a favorite. Again, as a dog, he's done much better. So I kind of like him in dog spots. You want to try to avoid him as a favorite.
I like it. I like the call. Listen, he'll have to not be terrible, but that's not a bad bet to make. Like, why? That, it's a reasonable bet to make. Like, why would if he just plays his kind of regular, they should be fine. If you believe that way, by the way, John, I would recommend taking some shots on Amari Cooper in DFS this week, because if he's throwing anybody, it's got to go to Amari. David Njoku's out here, so who else are you going to throw to? And also Ford, the running back, got full, not just a full workload. I believe he saw 7 targets last week. So Ford becomes this sort of true workhorse back. They don't have anybody else. And you can't get workhorse backs for the price of Ford right now anywhere else. So if the Browns are winning, I would feel confident that Ford scored a touchdown or did some damage along the way. Let's move on to the afternoon slate. We start with the Rams at the Cardinals, 48.5 point total. One of my favorite games just in general. I think that one of the best games on this slate from a, potential for game stacking and high scoring goodness. Could this be the first time in years, probably through 2 seasons, that we get a 20 plus fantasy point score from Kyler Murray? It feels like it's been forever. On the Rams side, they lose Puka Nacua last week, so we get lock button Cooper Kupp super chalk. Everybody's playing Cooper Kupp, and of course Demarcus Robinson, Ty Johnson, and the tight end, even Colby Parkinson, all look good. Kyron Williams got 88% of the running back touches last week. I love the Rams offense. Super concentrated on just a few guys. And then on the Cardinals, Greg Dortch was the highest targeted player on the team last week. Go figure. James Conner had a big game. So I like both sides of this. I'm not sure I agree with Cardinals being favored, but I'm going to leave that to you, John. This is basically a pick'em game. How do you see it going down?
Well, they weren't favored at the open. So this got flipped, and the sharps are the ones who flip it, and they did. So they came in on Arizona. They got them at like plus 2.5 where this opened. They got to double check that. But the sharp money was, plus 2.5. They got this all the way now down to Arizona being the favorite in this game. So I kind of like Arizona myself. While you were talking,
let me stop you there. This is one of the reasons why you need the Sharp app. You get the Sharp report. If you bet these lines and you're seeing what the Sharps are doing when they're doing it, instead of getting Arizona at -1 right here, you're getting them maybe -2. That report doesn't come out the same second, but you're getting on. You have Sharps that consistently beat the closing lines. And there's a lot of people, John, who bet that way. They just want to beat the closing lines. They feel like I'm doing well if I'm beating closing lines all the time. And eventually, much like poker, those little edges that I'm getting will come back. So go check out the Sharp app, sharp.app. The website has it as well. You can go on the iOS store, download the Sharp app. You get in the Discord with John, giving out his picks, but also teaching how to use the tools from the Sharp report to the Proptimizer. And coming in the next few weeks, a whole new suite of tools that will compare and go beyond any suite of fast odds, display odds comparison tools that exist in the industry. The fastest 70, 80 sports books all on screen at one time. What's coming for Sharp is going to blow the industry away. Get in there now before it's released and everything goes up. So I'm just teasing that this stuff is coming in the next few weeks, and you're going to see a whole new Sharp beyond just the Sharp report and the amazing Proptimizer, tools for sides, tools for hedging, tools for arbitrage, everything coming in the next couple of weeks. Get in there now. Get in there now. And get with John in the Discord. Ask your questions. And, of course, follow along with the bets of all these sharp bettors. So, sorry, John. I got to get the commercial in.
Yeah, of course. This is one of those games I'll get a lot of questions on. Well, should I take Arizona minus the 1 or should I play them on the money line?
You know what? I'd be taking. All right. My answer is you take the -1.
Yeah, here you're definitely going to take the -1. That 1 point is not worth 10 cents. It's only worth like 6 or 7 cents. So you're going to save yourself about 3 cents by taking the -1. I think a lot of people would probably intuitively take that one because you don't want to pay. You're thinking, how many times the game going to end on 1, right? So, and in this case, you'd be right. But I get that question quite a bit. If you look at the other side, it's 10 cents to go from the +1. If you like the Rams, that's a 10-cent move from -108 to the +102. And I'm just kind of looking to go 1 to go down to the pick'em. Yeah, again, that would probably be you would just take the.
I think you're taking the pick'em. Yeah, the pick'em.
No, that one you would take the +1 -108.
You're paying 10 cents for the.
You don't want to pay the 10. I'm sorry. You would take the pick'em. You would take the +102 and not play the and not pay the 10 cents.
Yeah, you're taking the pick'em there.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I like the Rams side here. I think they're a better team. I think Arizona is just kind of.
Arizona look good. It's against Buffalo. I mean, maybe people are down on Buffalo. They look good in that game. I think the 48.5 actually seems light to me. I think these are two offenses that are going to be able to put. Both offenses look pretty good last week. I think the over is in play, and I'm leaning on the Arizona side myself.
I mean, that last part is what I want to hear. This is the only game that I've identified this week as being worthy of game stacking. I know you're a big game stacker of most games. I don't believe in that. But I do think that this game is very game stackable. It just stands out from both sides in terms of just points, fantasy production coming. One thing
about game stacking, right? So not necessarily that it's always going to be the right play, but you've got a better shot at when you hit it to win because you don't have as many other pieces. That's the logic behind it.
There's great reasoning for it, but I do think certain teams play certain ways that it's just not necessary.
Absolutely.
So I almost think it. So let me back it up. We have the DFS Army Domination Station optimized, best optimized business, promo code Crunch, $10 a week at DFS Army for NFL, right? But here's the thing. If I force a comeback on the optimizer, because we can custom force stacks, or we could just give little boosts to naturally create stacks. The sim boost is the better way to do it. But when you force the stack, it's pulling a player in regardless of how shit their projection is. It's like, hey, I'm forced to use a player from this team. And so when I see a team like, I'll give you an example, the Bills, right? The Bills are a team that will keep trying to score regardless of the score of the game up until like the last 2 minutes. They don't slow it down. So I don't ever care about game stacking that one because they're going to keep scoring anyway. But the flip side for me is when I see a team like the Ravens, they do not do that. They actively will slow their shit down, run the football, and try to get out of there with the win. They don't keep trying to score when they're ahead. So teams like that, they're very game stackable, or they should be always game stacked because they're not going to get crazy scores if both sides aren't doing it. So I do think I try to pay attention to the coaches. It's not the team, it's the coaches and how they treat situations. And certain like Seattle under the previous head coach, they would never ever be worthy of anything if the other team wasn't scoring. Like they will slow it down. Under Pete Carroll, they just never did that. They would always stop trying to score. And so they were a team that you only wanted to game stack or it wasn't worth it. So it's just really a coaching thing for me. But I think sometimes full game stacking forces you to take like suboptimal players that you're just almost too suboptimal even to win tournaments. But, you know, you're right. When the game does go off and you have a crazy stack on it, you get the big edge. And that will absolutely happen, 5 times over the course of an NFL season. And if you're game stacking the shit out of everything, you'll catch those games. So everything works and everything doesn't work. Depends on the week. Let's move on. Did you have a side here, John? I mean, were you leaning one way or the other? Is it with the sharps on Arizona?
Yeah, I would lean towards the Arizona side. I do like Arizona a little bit more here in this game.
I'm leaning the other way, but I didn't bet it, so I'm not going to take a big stand on that one. Bengals at the Chiefs. You know what I call Joe Burrow? I got a new name for him. Joe Slow starter. Slow starts Burrow. Slowro. No.
Yeah, it's not working.
I'm testing the material here.
Yeah, it's fine.
And it's an I'll take the L. I'll take
it's not.
I've been trying it on a few different shows and I haven't quite gotten that one right. But Joe Burrow, known for the slow starts, coming off the injury, looked like ass last week. Not good. But on the positive note, Jamar Chase is practicing with the team and he'll be up a little more up to speed this week and blah, blah, blah. Right? Chiefs at home look spectacular in week 1. Xavier Worthy, right? The rookie looks like the real deal. Rashee Rice continuing where he left off. I will say this about Travis Kelce. I don't know why this guy came back looking like King Douche with the hat and the haircut. I don't know what's going on with Kelce, but I didn't even know that was him. I was like looking at that's Kelce. T-Swizz gave him a makeover that I'm not enjoying. You don't even want to get involved with any sort of any discussion of anything that's pop culture, current events. Like you just shut down.
I could care less.
You shut down. You want no interest in it. You didn't even see you didn't see the hat that Kelce was wearing.
I saw it. Yeah.
You saw the hat?
Yeah, it is what it is. Man.
You don't have an opinion? Like that doesn't offend you?
I couldn't, I guess the proper word, I could not care less.
All right. Well, there you go. You're the right. You do it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem with this whole situation is now I got to listen to Jason Kelce on these shows now. And like, he's all of a sudden the greatest comment. He was on ESPN or whatever he was on the Monday Night Football. It's like, all right, I'm Kelce'd out at this point.
You're like, bro, you're an offensive lineman. Keep your mouth shut.
I'm Kelce'd out. Like, I'm cool with the Mannings. Like
the Mannings are hilarious. I love the man. I never thought Eli had a personality like when he was a player, and now I love him.
No, because he's dry and funny. He works well with his brother. They work well. But I listen, they're two really bright, football minds. It's good listening to them when they're into the football. It's funny. They're humorous here and there, but when they get into the football, that's what you're watching it for, is to get some insight into the game. Speaking of which, I thought Tom Brady had just an awful.
I didn't hear him. I didn't hear him at all.
It was terrible. He doesn't really have a great voice for it, but he's got to get. You want to get some more insights into, you're Tom Brady. You're the greatest that ever did it. I want to know something that I don't know. He'll hopefully get better at it, but yeah, it was.
He wasn't good. What game did he do?
He did the Cleveland Dallas game. So
I was on Red Zone. I didn't really get like individual play by plays, but I do want to go back and listen. I think Brady can be very good at it, but
yeah, I mean, he's got a good personality and everything. He's just got to open up, and he's got to give us the insight. Romo came on. Romo's not doing the Romo thing when he first started, but at least it was something cool where he was like at the line of scrimmage. He's giving you the plays, and I get he's out of the league now, and maybe that's why he doesn't know as much as he did when he was just he's been out of the league for a few years. But that I thought it was interesting, and
that's what made Romo the greatest for like a couple of years. He was
now
made you feel like.
Yeah, Romo's not that great now.
Well, at that time he was still in the mind. Like when he's in the mindset of a quarterback, he's like thinking, "All right, here's what the quarterback's thinking right now." He's watching the safety, and give me that, bro.
But that's what I want to get. I want to say, like, give me the, hey, look, the safety moved down. This is what he's keying. He's watching the safety. The safety comes in. He's coming over the top. If give me the reads by the quarterback. Like I want to hear that. That's what a football fan wants to hear from Brady. I mean, you might as well have had just Joe Average guy in the box, but he'll get hopefully. Yeah,
he'll get better. Let's cut the guy some slack. I get he's the GOAT, but I mean, give him a minute. Chiefs are -5 in this one. Again, my eye tells me that doesn't even look like enough of a spread, but I haven't looked at the sharp report to see if anything's moving this line. But I mean, for the Bengals to even hang at +5, they have to look a hell of a lot better than they looked in week 1.
There's no doubt about that. And they're going to have to put some points up on the board to stay with the Chiefs. You would think. So this line, I mean, the line itself at 5, it's in that odd kind of no man's land place here at 5. The sharps haven't come in on it at all, so they haven't touched this game. I don't particularly like the line either. I think the most movement that we've seen is in the total. So this thing got bet. It got bet down initially, so it opened up higher. Got bet all the way down to 46. Opened up at like 49, came down to 46, went back up to 49, and now it's been slowly creeping back down to 47.5. I think that's a product of maybe how poorly the Bengals offense looked in that game last week. So I don't have a strong opinion on this game. I would lean here towards the Chiefs side. When we look at the sharp report, the book needs Cincinnati, which is telling you, and that's a sharp book again.
Yeah,
you've got to learn the sharp report when you're in the Discord and you learn about it. But we tend to want to fade what the book needs, and that would be taking the Chiefs here. So
I'm with you. I love the look of Pacheco as well last week. Just sing the praises of all the offensive pieces for the Chiefs. Higgy Smalls should be out. T. Higgins should be out again for the Bengals as well. So, DFS purposes, look for Jamar Chase to get like 12 targets in this one. Sometimes that leads to a secret, quiet little smash for Jamar Chase. All of that requires that Joe Burrow is like a normal Joe Burrow and not the weird coming off injury, rusty version we saw last week. So we're gonna find out. We're gonna fuck around, and then we're gonna find out, and that's how it's gonna happen, John. Steelers at the Broncos. Broncos at home. Bo Nix taking on maybe the Justin Fields led Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Fields was out there tossing bombs to George Pickens. They don't have a lot of weapons on the Steelers. They don't care. One thing I noted about the Steelers last week, and just not watching the basically, remember in the preseason, Jalen Warren got hurt, and then he's fine, no Q tag, no nothing, and then they played Najee the whole game with almost no Jalen Warren. Then, of course, after the game, Warren still got the hamstring issues, and we're working him back slow. Thanks for removing the Q tag, you jerks. But so clearly, I don't think that was a sign that it's going to be the Najee show. Not that he did well anyway, but that it's going to be the Najee show. I mentioned it because the Broncos, if you recall from your power ranking sheet from 2023, were the team to target with running backs for most of the season last year. So I always think, okay, running back, it's the Broncos. Not to mention the fact that they have Pat Surtain, which generally takes out the opposing best wide receiver, gets me concerned about Pickens. So a little bit, maybe a lot of little DFS talk on this one, but the game at 36 points does not scream use players from this game in your fantasy lineups. So for the most part, it's an ignore. Steelers 2.5 points. I think yes. I think you take it, John. I think you lay the 2.5.
So I was looking at the look ahead lines on Sunday, and I had missed the 3. I wanted to get this Denver at 3, and I missed it. I love Denver in this game, and it is one of the biggest sharp plays that we have on the sharp report this week.
Denver.
We've got more sharps on the Denver side than any other game. They knocked this one down from 3. They got it at 3, as they always do. I did not see the 3. Otherwise, I would have had this one at the 3. So I've been holding off. I will be betting Denver. I don't think it ever gets back to 3. I don't think they want to open themselves up to getting hit. But so 2.5 is probably the best I'm going to be able to do. But I'm going to be on Denver as well in this one. I had Pittsburgh last week. That was a winner. Like that game. Again, goes back to when you get that veteran quarterback. Now we had kind of a similar situation. It was kind of quarterback switches for both of those teams. But a lot of people were down on Pittsburgh last week without Russell Wilson. I was all for it. The line, talk about line. Watch the line move. They didn't really move that line much at all. With Wilson coming in, I heard people saying, well, not with Wilson being out. I heard people saying, well, Fields plays, this line is going to get even higher. I'm like, well, the higher it gets, give me more of the points, because I had more confidence that Fields was going to play well than I did Wilson. Now, it wasn't necessarily Fields that went out there and won the game. The defense really held down Atlanta. So I think Denver, I didn't like how Bo Nix looked. I can't say that. I think it's going to be an ugly game, as the 36.5 indicates. But I think Denver at home is going to be a tough place here for Pittsburgh. I think they get the job done. Denver's going to be one of my best plays of the week.
There it is. So I will not be betting Pittsburgh just based on what you just said. I'm glad to be here. It's the beauty of the game plan. All the sharps are on Denver. Okay. I think they're going to have a hard time, Denver. That Steelers defense looked really good to me. But it could be one of those games where it's the Steelers offense that's also not looking good, and it's just a stinker, and just getting the 3 is enough because it finishes within a field goal one way or the other.
I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's it for the main slate. NFL, do you want to do a side for the night games? We'll just do a quick side here. Bears at the Texans. Bears giving 6. Texans home favorites.
Bears getting 6.
Bears getting 6. Texans 6-point home favorites. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I like the Bears side. I'm gonna have the Bears plus the 6 there.
I like Houston. All right, last one.
I do like Houston as a, and then people say, how can you bet against the? I do think Houston in survivor pools probably their best option this week because of they're being taken at a fairly low percentage, and they're not as good a future value as you think if you look at their schedule.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I mean, the Bears with the rookie, you can't trust rookie. You can't. This is my issue with the Broncos. You can't trust rookie quarterbacks this early in their tenure.
Very tough. Unless
they're going up against Daniel Jones and the Giants, and you're kind of like, same shit. It's hard. I don't like trusting rookies in their second game at all. And last game of the slate, Eagles at home, 6.5-point favorites against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. Cousins coming off the horrific performance in week 1. Do you think you can turn around here and kind of keep him in the game?
No, I like Philly here. Philly minus the 6.5. I think Philly runs them out of the building.
Sounds about right to me. Okay, that's going to do it for the game plan. NFL Week 2. Remember, you can check out all of John's content, his plays each week, his breakdowns, everything over at the Sharp app, sharp.app, or download the Sharp app on the iOS, Android stores, wherever you get an app. It's got great stuff, the game center, comparative odds, everything you need as a sports bettor. You can track your bets and all kinds of good stuff on the Sharp app itself. And of course, if you are into daily fantasy sports, check out DFS Army this week only. We have your weekly NFL brought down to $10 for the week, just to check it out. A lot of people are like, hey, we want to check out your optimizer. Our optimizer's not working. It went in the garbage. Guy ran away, took my money. So I'm like, okay, we're here for you. We got your back. DFS Army NFL for the week. Promo code CRUNCH gets you $10 for the full week of NFL coverage, ownerships, projections, everything we do here at DFS Army. Go check it out. And we will see you guys next time. Good luck, everybody.